This is post-apocalypse Washington, D.C. Get a good look because it's where we're headed. No, you can't start a video like that. It's too dispiriting. A while back, I took you guys on a historical tour through downtown Boston via the Freedom Trail in Fallout 4. I wanted to do something similar to that, but in Fallout 3. But the only problem is that Fallout 3 has no laid out path like that to take you on. So what can I use? What can I use as a template to teach you guys about the DC area? Alright, let's not kid anyone, you all saw the thumbnail. One of my personal biggest flexes in life is that I have seen every single Nicolas Cage movie. And one of my personal favorites is National Treasure.
It's a big, bluish green man.
I don't know, I guess I like historical fiction stuff. And Bethesda is really good at recreating US areas in their games, and Fallout 3 is no exception to this. So I thought it would be fun to go through every location, well mostly every, you'll know what I mean in a second, in National Treasure and see what the Fallout equivalent of that location is like. And maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way. So, let's ride.
Okay, let's ride.
The movie starts out with young Ben snooping around his grandfather's attic like we've all done at some point. We don't know where this is. Yes we do, it's in DC. And it doesn't really matter because it's just a set in Hollywood, so we can't go there. This flashback takes place at the White House, which is in Fallout 3. Kinda. But the real shooting location was Constitution Hall, as you can see here. It looks enough like the White House to get the job done, plus I bet it was easier to get a permit to shoot there versus shooting at the actual White House. After one of the greatest transitions in cinematic history, we are in a place that's supposed to be the northern Canadian Arctic, but really it's a place called Chicken Creek West in Utah. Utah does have Fallout representation in the New Vegas DLC, but this place is just outside that area, so we can't go there either. But next thing you know, we're at the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington, D.C., which also is not in the game. But I think it would be somewhere around here. Next, we're at the National Archives, a place that's finally in the game. Now, obviously the National Archives and National Treasure is going to be accurate because it's where these scenes were actually shot. But in Fallout 3, the National Archives building is a bit different. You can tell they tried to stay true to the spirits of the building because you can see that there is this learning center here, and there are a lot of classrooms in the building. So after the dynamic duo gets shut down by Abigail,
did Bigfoot take it?
They'll make their way to the Rotunda. And Bethesda is really good at recreating rotundas. They have the cases where you can see the real Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. They even have areas where the two murals used to be. The murals by Barry Faulkner depict all the men that signed the Declaration of Independence, and they are each the size of a city bus. The Declaration and Bill of Rights are in the vaults of the archives, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But somehow, Rivet City got their hands on the Constitution. I don't know. After Nicolas Cage declares that he's going to steal the Declaration of Independence in order to prevent someone else from stealing the Declaration of Independence, they make their way to Lincoln Memorial in front of the reflecting pool to reflect on if this is actually a good idea. And thus Riley takes Ben to the Library of Congress to plead his case that it isn't. The library is not in the game, but I figured this would be a good time to tell you guys some stuff about the actual measures that are taken to protect the Declaration of Independence, IRL. Yes, there are guards and security measures, like of course. Riley mentions a 1-inch thick pane of bulletproof glass. Everything that I saw says it's actually 3/8 of an inch thick, and it's laminated with a special filter to filter out harmful UV and other rays. This is all according to the Preservation of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. by the United States Department of Commerce National Bureau of Standards, or the USDCMBS. The sensors and heat monitors that Riley brings up are actually there, but they're not like the wee woo, someone's getting too close kind of sensor. They detect things like humidity and monitor the atmosphere to make sure that that airtight enclosure stays airtight. The enclosure itself is filled with argon, an inert gas, which can't cause oxidation or anything like that as brought on by other gases in our atmosphere. The humidity is kept at 25% to 35% of room temperature. Too much moisture and you risk growth of microorganisms that don't need oxygen. Too little and the document becomes brittle. The part about being lowered into a vault is also true. 4 feet thick? I don't know, I guess it sounds good in the movie. However, the original vault that they used for this is no longer in use. Now this quick little scene is interesting because this is actually the back entrance to the National Archives building. You can tell because there's this much smaller door with these little statues on either side. Obviously the layout of the city is not up to scale, but across the street where Riley's van would be parked, there's a car kinda parked there. And even further, there's also a metro stop just like in the movie. So it's still crazy to me how close Bethesda gets to really getting the layout of these cities right. But there isn't anything down there that leads to the archives, I checked. But there is a subway map that looks just like the one that's in the game, which is pretty cool.
They look nothing alike.
Now on the night of the heist, the document is moved into a preservation room, which does exist, but I just don't think it looks like this. Not that I could find at least. Maybe they have a different room for the really special documents, because everything that I saw looked like it's just a bunch of books and boxes. Hey, editing Dave here again. Don't listen to me here. The video that I'm referencing here was not the right kind of thing at all. But then I found this video of some people in different lab doing some work on a page of the US Constitution. So the room still isn't as cinematic as a preservation room in the movie, but it still lets you know how things are really done. Anyways, they park across the street from the back entrance again. The back entrance in the game leads to just some library right away, not a security checkpoint. Sean Bean and his crew start their way to the archives via underground, which just always seems to be some kind of convenient option for these kind of scenarios. The majority of the ball takes place in the rotunda, as you can tell by the massive murals. And after breaking some fans and cutting through some locks, suddenly Sean and his crew are just in the basement of the archives. If they were doing this in Fallout 3, they would be greeted by a bunch of extremely hostile and patriotic robots, instead of just one guard. Meanwhile, Nicolas the Invisible Man Cage makes his way to the hallway with a terminal to access the declaration. In the game, this exists too, except it leads to that same basement but a different wing. This wing has a bunch of super mutants, but you can quickly make your way to the same wing, which has that vault elevator that we were talking about before. Except this one is people size instead of the real one, which is just Declaration of Independence size. In the movie, boom, the Declaration is just right there for the taking. But in Fallout, you have to make your way through what seems like a maze of metal hallways filled with robots and enough leaking gas pipes to drive you up a fucking wall. God damn it! At this point you might notice that it seems like I'm playing with God mode enabled. That's because I am. That's because beneath this mask there is more than flesh. Beneath this mask there is an idea. And ideas are bulletproof. And that idea is to make a video comparing National Treasure locations to Fallout locations in a timely manner. So shut up, leave me alone. But the key differences I'm trying to show is that in the real world, the government settled for more passive, high-tech measures to keep the charters of freedom safe, while the Fallout government chose confusion, chaos, and brute force to protect the documents. This way makes for a better video game. Now, in order to get your hands on the actual documents of Fallout 3, all you have to do is convince the robot that you are Thomas Jefferson.
You, sir, are a liar.
While in the movie, all he has to do was unscrew some screws. Here, you want to know something about the enclosure? This is going to be a little bit of a chuckle. What? When they were testing what kind of glass the enclosure should use, they determined the double glazed panels made commercially as insulated windows would be suitable. It's just the world's fanciest bulletproof window, which is convenient in case someone were to, I don't know, shoot at you. But both you and Nicolas Cage make your escape via elevator, and we all know rolling a paper like this just really messes it up. So this must have driven any conservator absolutely bonkers. Eventually, the Cagester makes his way out back the back entrance, where shit goes down. A chase scene ensues. I tried to use my geoguessr skills and street knowledge to find the specific streets that they drive through. But this was all in vain once I found out that part of the chase scene was actually shot in LA. So yeah, I'm not going to do that. But what's important is that they make their way to the Jefferson Memorial. And I wanted to find this spot specifically. There's a couple things that we need to look at in order to do this. First, they just had the audacity to park on the grass, which is not how you remain inconspicuous when the entire FBI is after you. Plus, it's bad for the grass. Next thing is this railing here. Most of the railing around the Jefferson Memorial is a completely different type of railing. But then in this shot, we see the pointy roof bit of the memorial. And if we look at Google Maps, we can determine that we are north of the memorial, across a tidal basin in a place called Floral Park that has the correct railing. The memorial just looks a lot closer than it actually is because of movie magic. And in the game there isn't a real floral park, but there is this area that I guess you could argue looks like a scaled down version of a public park. Let's see, his apartment is in LA, so we can't go there. But this building has been a bunch of other shows and movies like Always Sunny in Philadelphia and The Fast and Furious. Dad's house is actually in Pasadena, but you could buy it for $4.3 million if you got the spare cash. The Franklin Institute is in Philly, so we can't go there because Philly has no Fallout representation either. Maybe Fallout 5. In fact, the next 20 or so minutes of the movie takes place in Philly, so we can't do much here anyways. But, fun fact, the Silence Do-Good letters are real, but ironically they're in the British Museum. So whatever this kid is reading is fake. Just like this replica of Independence Hall that these scenes were shot in. It's a brick-for-brick set in Hollywood. It's a national monument, so not even Nicolas Cage can get permission to damage it. What are you gonna do? Next, the gang heads to the Big Apple and the USS Intrepid. Again, New York is not represented in Fallout, but I'm not gonna leave you guys empty-handed. The USS Intrepid is the same class of ship that Rivet City is based on. So that's pretty cool also. The rest of our time in New York is spent in Trinity Church. It's always interesting to see a massive Gothic style church surrounded by modern skyscrapers. It's like, look how far we've come. But again, obviously I can't take you to this church in game, but there is a Trinity Church in Fallout 4. Look, I'm starting to feel bad because there's no more places I could take you that are in the movie that are also in the Fallout game, which is pretty much what this video is titled. So, I don't know, I guess that makes me a liar. But I guess I'll supplement that by telling you that the church these scenes were shot in were also not in New York either. But instead, this church can be found in, that's right, Los Angeles. It's the first Congregational Church of Los Angeles, and it also has been in other movies like Spider-Man 2 and the 2003 Daredevil movie that no one talks about. Oh, and spoiler alert, there isn't really a staircase leading to a massive treasure room beneath the church either. Sorry to break your heart like that. But the video doesn't have to end with me telling you that we can't go to a bunch of places because they aren't in the video game. Because thankfully Sean Bean falls for Papa Gates' ruse about the Old North Church in Boston. Only if Sean Bean had seen my video about the Freedom Trail, then he would know that it was 2 lanterns that were lit to signify that the British were coming by sea and not by land. Then he would have known that he's being lied to. Anyway, Sean Bean takes the bait, and as he's trying to break into one of the most important churches in United States history, he's arrested and has no choice but to look up at the one true God as he strikes a heroic pose lit by streetlight across the street. But I don't think this is actually across the street from the Old North Church, because if you look at what's really across the street there's nothing that looks like this. But it looks good and that's all that matters. So there you have it. We're at the end of the movie, so that means we're at the end of the video. I hope you learned some stuff. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so I have better luck with the YouTube algorithm. I don't really know how I'll end this video, so Smoke bomb!